Okay, welcome back to R3G Studios. Today we'll be talking about the possible rumored Uncharted 5 development. And apologies for my hair being a little messed up. I haven't had a retwist in like 3 months, so you'll just have to bear with me.
You ever wonder, with different choices, how we might have ended up?
No. I like the hand we've been dealt.
Get up here!
Today we'll just be discussing, will there be an Uncharted 5? Where is the franchise going to go after the Uncharted movie? Is the development still going to be headed by Naughty Dog? And what do we expect the writers to take? Like, what direction do we expect the writers to take Uncharted 5? So first of all, answering the question of will there be an Uncharted 5? Apparently there's a new Uncharted game on the horizon, and Uncharted 5 will be the first proper installment in Naughty Dog's long-running series since 2016's Uncharted 4: A Thief's End concluded the acclaimed story arc of Nathan Drake. Where the series goes from here is up for debate, but its continuation is nearly inevitable. So, what can we expect from Uncharted 5? Sony didn't get to where they are in the video game industry by allowing iconic franchises to gather dust, and neither did Naughty Dog for that matter. So it's safe to say that I think no matter what happens to the actual Uncharted series, there's no way that Sony and Naughty Dog are going to let this franchise just die in the embers. They're definitely going to keep bringing it back. Whether they bring it back now, or they bring it back later on in the future, it's definitely always going to be ever present. And we've seen this as well with the way Sony's been marketing its protagonists. Nathan Drake is always in and amongst all the other protagonists: Kratos, Ratchet and Clank, Aloy, Ellie, Joel, all of them. They're always included in the marketing. Now, what would an Uncharted 5 actually look like? Uncharted 5 is likely viewed as an ace in the hole, meaning it won't be confirmed nor developed until the timing is right for the next Uncharted game to drop. But in terms of will there be another Uncharted game or not, we think it's inevitable, like I just mentioned. With that in mind, it could be quite some time until we get an Uncharted 5 release date confirmed, let alone get our hands on a copy of the said Uncharted 5 game. Although not as long as one might think if certain rumors are to be believed about the Uncharted new game in the works. Now, one of the questions that we have is Naughty Dog still going to be the ones at the forefront of developing Uncharted? The answer to this question depends on what you mean by developing. On one hand, it seems unlikely that Naughty Dog will be the primary developer of Uncharted 5, but on the other hand, Uncharted is such a big franchise, you would imagine that Naughty Dog would want to remain primary for it, even though, they're currently working on Factions 2, they're working on a new rumored fantasy IP, and they've probably got The Last of Us Part 3 still in the pipeline, and a potential director's cut for The Last of Us Part 2. So they have their hands very full at this moment in time. So it's very possible that someone else in Sony's roster may have been handed the reins to either work on Uncharted 5 or to work on a possible Uncharted reboot/remake. While unsubstantiated, Sony's recent acquisition of Bluepoint Games could relate to Uncharted 5. Because Bluepoint Games have proven themselves masters of remakes, but they are reportedly working on an original title right now. This could be interpreted as new IP, or it could be interpreted as existing IP, but just a new entry. Now, what influence does the Uncharted film play on proceedings? Now, the influence of Uncharted, the film, in my opinion, the creation of it, all but confirms that Sony plans to continue to develop Uncharted. The film has not only reignited fan interest in the series, but expanded the pool of potential players by introducing it to a new audience. And we're seeing a lot of video game developers are doing this, whether it's what Cyberpunk did with Edge Runners, what League of Legends did with Arcane, The Witcher did it with their own series as well, and the upcoming HBO The Last of Us as well is also going to introduce The Last of Us to a new audience as well. So I imagine Uncharted movie did the same, even though it wasn't exactly to canon, and it was, you know, sort of like a take back in time, it still introduced the franchise to a new audience. And it's noteworthy that the film focuses on Nathan Drake. The time is ripe to welcome these new fans into the fold and get them hooked on the video games that started it all. However, the fact that Uncharted 4: Thief's End provides narrative closure to Drake's story, this complicates things. And like I've mentioned before in one of my previous videos, it's sort of like the situation that Red Dead Redemption find themselves in, where Red Dead Redemption's story is, in a way, it's complete. Because what we saw in Red Dead Redemption 1 was the actual redemption and the closure of John's story. And then Red Dead Redemption 2 took us back in time and was able to show us, you know, the prequel that got us to that eventual redemption. So again, it's interesting. Do they continue with, you know, Nathan Drake as a protagonist, even though he's theoretically hung up his boots? Or do they go back in time? Or do they go to a new protagonist? Now, they could also take notes from Sony Santa Monica's God of War 2018, which was, in a sense, a reboot of the existing franchise, where they basically just took Kratos' story out of the Greek mythology and took it into another realm, into the Norse mythology world, while still being able to stick to the roots of the original story and the franchise itself. So in a sense, they rebooted it, but they didn't lose their essence. Or, again, they could go back in time, like I just mentioned with Red Dead Redemption 2. What they could do is do another prequel, because they've already done that with some of the other Uncharted games, where they went back in time to where, you know, Nathan Drake was on his adventures with Elena, and, you know, Sully was just always there as the old head. So they could go back to another previously, you know, untold story, in air quotes, and essentially tell that story again, and leading up to, you know, to one of the events of what eventually happened to Uncharted 4: Thief's End, where Nate essentially hangs up his boots from the treasure hunting world. Or the other possible path is to follow what The Last of Us did and introduce a new protagonist. And when I say new protagonist, I mean just an existing protagonist to sort of take over. So what The Last of Us did was they gave us Joel and they gave us Ellie as the sidekick. So Joel was the original protagonist, and then the story continued and proceeded on. But because you want this franchise to have longevity beyond Joel, you're able to then pass the torch to Ellie, and then from then on, the torch was somewhat passed to Abby, even though Abby, you know, was from a rival faction. In the end, we're able to now be able to pursue her story, or pursue Lev's story, or simultaneously again continue down the path with Ellie and Dina and what happens to them at the end of The Last of Us Part 2. But it gives the series continuity where you're able to continuously change protagonists and move the story. Oh, and by the way, apologies for the ratcheting clank in the background. I just figured it was the most, you know, neutral game to put in the background on my TV there. And when I'm mentioning this, Uncharted already did this in a form with Chloe and Nadine's story. So they already showed that the Uncharted franchise, while Nate is the face of the franchise, he doesn't necessarily have to be the one constantly carrying it. So Chloe and Nadine were able to hold their own in a game of their own on the franchise. Now, for me, the direction that I think they'll probably take, or maybe the direction that I want them to take, let me per se, because they need to future-proof it, right? I feel like the easiest path outside of, okay, I think the second easiest path is, of course, a prequel going back in time. But I think the easiest path would be to pass the torch to Cassie, Nate's daughter. And what you'd be doing by doing this, right, is you're future-proofing the series. So again, you're doing what Naughty Dog did with Ellie. Ellie had the torch passed to her from Joel. So what you can do is still have Nate as a character and have Nate as, you know, that senior figure, whether he's, you know, helping her in the actual quest, or if he's coming in the form of flashbacks and he's a playable character, or he's just, you know, there in the form of like the wise head. So what Sully does to Nate, right? Nate would become Sully for Cassie, and then Cassie would be the one going on, you know, treasure hunting adventures and all sorts. So for me, I think what this does is it still maintains Nate as the face of the franchise, but you're able to still move the story along. And we also saw Sony Santa Monica do this with God of War, giving us Atreus. So we're able to explore, Atreus' stories, Atreus' adventures, Atreus' paths, and still have Kratos looming, in the background of the actual story. Even if, Kratos may not be the most playable character in like the next God of War. Let's say we play Atreus a lot more than we play Kratos. You're still able to dance between the two. So for me, I think this would allow the franchise to live on. They could also take the franchise in whatever direction they want, maybe giving it like a more darker tone, a somber tone, or they could continue it in a more lighthearted, fun side of it, because that's the balance that Uncharted always had. Because it was, treasure hunting and everything, but it was never too dark. It was never too like grim or gritty. So with being able to take Cassie on her own adventures and her own stories, you'd probably be able to give it a darker tone and essentially give it sort of like a Tomb Raider type tone, and you could essentially so it's not necessarily ripping Tomb Raider, but it's essentially you can make Cassie become a Tomb Raider like figure, the way that like Chloe and Nadine were in their adventures in the section of the Uncharted franchise. So I think that could probably be like the easiest path if I was working for Naughty Dog and I was looking at the direction, or whoever's developing it. If I was like in the writer's room, I would be like, okay, let's explore this Cassie path, and then probably combine it with like flashbacks from the past where you get to play as Nate. So it's a win-win scenario. And so for me, I think this would probably be the best case scenario if I was to choose. And again, it's just my opinion. So if I was to choose where Uncharted 5 would go, I would present Cassie as the new protagonist, have Nate as the Sully figure, the wise figure coming with us on the adventures, and then also provide sections where there can be flashbacks to the period between, where Nate hung up his treasure hunting boots, and we could like be able to play as Nate in like maybe a previously unwritten story, or just like a flashback of something that happened that they probably didn't show us between the original Uncharted games. So you could easily get away with that. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think. What direction do you want Uncharted to go? Do you think it's coming anytime soon? And when I say soon, I'm talking about 3-4 years. I'm not talking about like 2023. No way. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of the video. Do you guys like this format, this setup? I figured being able to see me doing these discussions is a bit better. I know I did do the other format where I had the camera facing me, looking down on me where I was sitting on the chair, but I figured maybe this is probably a better visual angle, and then I can always just have whatever game I'm discussing in the background. And although in this case I did use Ratchet and Clank, so that doesn't count, but Ratchet and Clank, I figure it's one of the PlayStation flag bearers, so it counts. I could also have like fucking The Last of Us or Ghost of Tsushima or God of War or whatever in the background, or Uncharted itself, because I also do have the games. But I figured Ratchet and Clank would give me some good colors. But yeah, let me know in the comments what you guys think. Where do you think Uncharted should go? Like, what direction would you pitch them to go? Do you think they're gonna make an Uncharted 5 in terms of pursuing a new story? Or do you think rather than do a new Uncharted, they'll probably do a remake, before pursuing a new Uncharted game? And again, let me know your New Year's resolutions, your plans for 2023. This video should be coming out, I think, in the beginning of January. I'm filming this the day before New Year's Eve, so it should be coming out probably around about in January, thereabouts. But yeah, as always, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay dangerous, stay blessed. 3-finger salute, and peace out.
I am a man of fortune, and I must seek my fortune.
The tusk of Ganesh.
Historians believe that it was a symbol of power and dominance.
Libertalia.
The long-lost legendary pirate you target.
The biggest pirate treasure of all time is within our grasp.
Take the wheel! What? Be out of your mind? Probably! Oh, crap! You know what, Nate? Underneath all the bravado, you're just a sad little boy with delusions of grandeur.
You'd risk your lives, and for what? Let's finish this!
How long we been chasing this thing, huh? You and me.